Okay, it is now 5:02 p.m. Pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5, Section 551.041 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Open Meetings Act, notice was given that the City Commission of the City of Brownsville would conduct a regular meeting on Tuesday, May 4th, 2021 at 5 p.m. via the WebEx teleconference meeting link provided at the City of Brownsville Agenda Center. This meeting and this notice and meeting agenda are posted online at the City of Brownsville Agenda Center. The members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting hosted through WebEx could also join by teleconference at the numbers provided on the agenda. Members of the public who submitted a public comment form will be permitted to offer public comments as provided by the agenda and as permitted by the presiding officer during the meeting. A recording of the meeting will be made and will be available to the public in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. It is now 5:03 p.m. I just want to confirm, have Commissioner Tetro or Commissioner Munguia joined us yet? Okay, Mayor, you may call the meeting to order.
Thank you, Lori. I'll now call the meeting to order. Those that are watching at home, thank you for watching. Let's get going. Thank you.
Okay, next up is our invocation by Pastor Brad Burke.
Let's pray. Father God, we thank you so much for your love, your grace, and your mercy, and all the many blessings you've given each of us. Once again, we thank you for the rain that we've received, and we ask you to send more in the amounts that are good for us. Lord God, once again, for those in our community that need healing, we ask you to heal them. Those that have lost loved ones, we ask you to comfort them and bring them closer to you. Lord, we thank you for Commissioner Rose Gowan in her next term for commissioner, and we ask you to continue to anoint her, lead and guide her, and lead and guide the voters in the runoffs to continue to give us the very best leaders for the city of Brownsville. And we ask for truth all across our nation. Lord, we thank you for our mayor and each of the commissioners and every entity that's presenting anything in this meeting today. We ask you to lead and guide them clearly and let the outcome be the very best for the city of Brownsville. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. And now we'll have a short moment of silence where we can all add our prayers to what has been spoken. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. I know you've got to leave. We appreciate you. Thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Appreciate everything you all do.
We'll move on to our proclamations. The first proclamation is designating the month of May 2021 as Building Safety Month in the city of Brownsville. This is sponsored by Commissioner Neese and Commissioner Cowan.
Commissioner Neese, would you like to read it?
I will, but you'll need to just scroll it again for me if you don't mind. Okay, there we go. A proclamation of the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas, designating the month of May 2021 as Building Safety Month. Whereas the City of Brownsville is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and economic value of the homes, buildings, and infrastructure that serve our citizens, both in everyday life and in times of disaster. And whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas Building Safety Month exists to remind the public about the critical role of our communities, largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local code officials who assure us of safe, sustainable, energy efficient, and livable buildings that are essential to America's prosperity. And whereas our nation benefits economically and technologically from using the international codes that are developed by a national voluntary consensus codes and standards developing organization, our government is able to avoid the high cost and complexity of developing and maintaining these codes, which are the most widely adopted building safety and fire prevention codes in the world. And these modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildland fires, floods, and earthquakes. And whereas prevent, prepare, protect, building codes save, the theme for Building Safety Month 2021 encourages all Americans to raise awareness about the importance of safe and resilient construction, fire prevention, disaster mitigation, energy conservation, water safety, training the next generation, and new technologies in the construction industry. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our communities, largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local code officials who assure us of safe, sustainable, energy efficient, and livable buildings that are essential to America's prosperity. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential services provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Commission of the City of Brownsville that the month of May 2021 be designated and recognized as Building Safety Month in the City of Brownsville. And the citizens, safety officials, and employees, community leaders, and businesses are encouraged to participate in Building Safety Month activities and to join the City Commission and City Management in showing appreciation and in recognizing the City of Brownsville's Planning and Redevelopment Department and the professionalism and service that they provide to the citizens, businesses, city staff, and city management. Done on this, the 4th day of May, 2021, signed by the mayor and the commissioners of the City of Brownsville.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
You're welcome. And thank you to the Planning and Redevelopment Department for the great job they do. Thank you, Rick Vasquez, for leading that department so well.
I'll definitely echo that. They're doing a fantastic job. Thank you, guys.
Our next proclamation is designating May 9th through 15th, 2021 as National Police Officers Week and May 15th, 2021 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, sponsored by Mayor Mendez and Commissioner Cowan.
Commissioner Cowan, would you like to read it?
Sure, I'd be happy to. A proclamation of the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas. Whereas the Brownsville Police Department was founded in 1859 in Brownsville, Texas, and is comprised of 247 law enforcement officers led by Police Chief Felix Salceda, and more than 800,000 law enforcement officers serve in communities across the United States. The Brownsville Police Department is committed to providing proactive, professional, and effective public safety and community service by employing integrity and fairness through community partnerships for the enhancement of the quality of life in the city of Brownsville. Whereas Peace Officers Memorial Day was first established on October 1st, 1961, when United States President John F. Kennedy signed a bill into law designating May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day. Today, Peace Officers Memorial Day and National Police Week pay tribute to local, state, and federal law enforcement officers who have died or who have been disabled in the line of duty. Whereas in 2020, 73 law enforcement officers died in the line of duty across the state of Texas, and a total of 360 officers were killed across the United States. The City of Brownsville and the Brownsville Police Department mourn the loss of the men and women who, without regard to self-interest, so courageously defended the law and their neighbors. And on May 15th, 2021, U.S. flags should be flown at half-staff in honor of fallen officers and their families. Whereas all citizens must recognize the responsibilities, hazards, sacrifices that local law enforcement officers make daily to ensure the safety and well-being of their community. And whereas by supporting the efforts of local law enforcement officers and reporting crime, the residents of Brownsville, Texas may aid the Brownsville Police Department in providing a vital public service that includes safeguarding life and property and working tirelessly to protect the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. Now, therefore, we, the members of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, by virtue of the authority vested by the Charter of said city, and on behalf of all our citizens, do hereby designate May 15th, 2021 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and May 9th through the 15th, 2021 as National Police Week, and further call upon the residents of Brownsville to take part in appropriate ceremonies and observances in which they join together in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to their communities, and in doing so, have established for themselves an enduring reputation for preserving the rights and securities of all citizens. Done on this, the 4th day of May, 2021, signed the mayor and the Brownsville City Commission.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Chief Salceda, are you here? If so, would you like to say a few words?
Absolutely. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of our commission. Thank you all very much. We are deeply honored, deeply grateful for the proclamation, not only as an organization, but as an industry as a whole. We are serving in some very trying times. We are serving in an era where a lot more is expected of each and every one of us. And as the proclamation made reference to, we're here to serve our community, give it our utmost effort as we continue to improve as an organization, as we continue to improve our industry as a whole. Thank you all. The proclamation will lead the way as we prepare to celebrate our fallen heroes. Thank you all once again.
Thank you, Chief, for all of your work over the past couple of years, and to all your officers. I think 247 officers, male and female officers on staff. They're doing a fantastic job, and they've helped keep us safe over the last year, definitely. And I know that it's much more taxing now than it was before for all of us. But thank you again for all your work.
Thank you, sir.
Our next proclamation is designating May 9th, 2021 as Mary Ituria Day in the city of Brownsville, sponsored by Mayor Mendez and Commissioner Tetro.
Commissioner Tetro, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, would you like to read this?
Yes, this one I'm so excited to go ahead and read. Mary Ituria is one of my favorite people in the entire community. She is a beacon of hope. She is a gorgeous, gorgeous woman, and I'm so excited to read this for her today for her birthday and to celebrate her. So I will begin. A proclamation of the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas, recognizing and honoring Mary Altman Ituria and designating May 9th, 2021 as Mary Ituria Day in recognition of her 96th birthday. Whereas the City Commission of the City of Brownsville is pleased to recognize Mary Altman Ituria on the grand occasion of her 96th birthday, and whereas Mary Ituria was born on May 9th, 1925 in York, Alabama. She graduated from the Sophie Wright School for Girls in New Orleans and attended Louisiana State University before joining Pan American Airlines in 1944 to aid in the war effort. And whereas she moved to Brownsville, where she met and married local rancher and banker Frank D. Ituria on her birthday, May 9th, 1947, and they enjoyed 71 years of marriage together. They were blessed with 2 daughters and 3 grandchildren and 5 great-grandchildren, who are a source of much pride and joy. And whereas through the years, Mary Ituria has devoted her time and energy to supporting and promoting a wide range of philanthropic and charitable causes, most notably in the fields of conservation and historic preservation. She is the founder of the Brownsville Museum and founding board member of the Los Caminos del Rio. She was founding member of the Gulf of Mexico Foundation and has served on the board of the Texas Audubon Society. And whereas Mrs. Ituria has founded, served on, and chaired numerous other boards and committees, promoting and improving the quality of life in Brownsville and Cameron County. She has received numerous honors, including the Ruth Lester Lifetime Achievement Award for the Brownsville Historical Commission and the Texas State Teachers Association Humanitarian Award. The Mary and Frank Ituria Elementary was named in honor of her and her husband. And whereas a beloved and respected member of the Brownsville community, as well as proven achiever with a reputation of reliability, dependability, compassion, and the ability to get things done. Mrs. Ituria is noted for her warmth, her wit, and her wise counsel, and she inspires those around her by her enthusiasm for living each day to the fullest. Now, therefore, we, the members of the City Commission of the City of Brownsville, Texas, by the virtue of the authority vested in the charter of the said city, and on behalf of all of our citizens, on the occasion of her 96th birthday, do hereby recognize and honor Mary Altman Ituria and designate May 9th, 2021 as Mary Ituria Day in the city of Brownsville to celebrate her birthday, to show appreciation for her faithful service to our community, and to further call upon the citizens of Brownsville to celebrate the contributions to our community by Mrs. Ituria throughout her 74 years as a resident of Brownsville. Done on this 4th day of May, 2021, Juan Trey Mendez and the City Commission of Brownsville, Texas. Congratulations, Mrs. Ituria. I'm so honored to present this to you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I don't know if Ms. Ituria is here or not, but if she is, I mean, I would invite her to say whatever she'd like to say. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
And thank you, Mary Ituria, for everything you've done.
We'll move on to presentations. Half Associates presentation on status of Sidewalk and Trails Master Plan.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners. Can you all hear me okay?
We sure can.
Very good, thank you. Thanks very much for inviting us to make a presentation to you all and provide you with an update on this most worthy assignment. I am joined by my colleague Colton Marvel. He's another planner with Half Associates. And I just wanted to say that we are happy to, whenever you're interested, we're happy to make a brief presentation to you all during your meeting. We provide Mr. Garza with progress reports every month, and usually on Fridays we'll provide Mr. Lund with brief emails as far as what we've accomplished that week, as well as what we're planning on doing the following week. So this evening we'll just give you a quick update on where we are, and I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have during the presentation or afterwards as well. So if we have the next slide, please. So as we discussed in the beginning of this planning program, we have developed an outline for the master plan for the sidewalk and trails, and it consists of 5 principal chapters. We have submitted the first 2 chapters now for city review and comment, and we will be completing the 3rd chapter, which has to do with public engagement as well as needs assessment later on this month. Next slide, please. The first chapter provides an overview again of the entire planning program, the purpose of this plan, the stakeholders whom we've met with, the benefits for a comprehensive bicycle, sidewalk, and trail very connected program. We also reviewed all of the city's past plans and studies, identified what key accomplishments have been taken or accomplished over the last several years, but then also what strategies and recommendations remain outstanding that warrant our renewed consideration for this plan as well. We have been involved in a fairly robust public engagement program, which we'll discuss momentarily. We also developed in this chapter a provisional vision and set of goals that we continue to test throughout the duration of this plan. Next slide, please. Chapter 2 involves existing conditions, and we do provide a comprehensive overview of not only the trail system within Brownsville, but also your sidewalks as well as on-street bike lanes. We have basically boiled down through the last couple of trips we've made to Brownsville. We have boiled all of what we're considering existing conditions and kind of problem areas, if you will, down to 10 key types of typical conditions, which we plan to address during our 4th chapter, which is where we get into strategies and recommendations. We also have done a fairly thorough regulatory analysis of your Unified Development Code and have identified what provisions can be enforced more effectively to make sure that we maintain a robust and safe and accessible connected sidewalk and trail system, but also what we might do to improve those provisions as well. Next slide, please. So over the last month, we have been conducting an online community survey. Many of you all have probably seen the survey and hopefully filled it out. We have received well over 900 responses as of yesterday, but the survey is it's bilingual, it's in English and Spanish, and you can respond to the survey on your smartphone or on your laptop, your computer. It's very easy, very user-friendly. Next slide, please. So we are prepared to give you just a brief snapshot of some of the findings of the survey, and we can do that shortly. But we have found that of the users, of the respondents to the survey, we've identified that your multi-use trails, sidewalks, bike lanes are very popular and well used. The main issues that were repeatedly brought up have to do with access and safety, as well as connectivity to other destinations, as well as other pedestrian facilities as well. So those are some of the key things we're going to be looking at is how can we improve the network of your active transportation facilities, again, those multi-use trails, sidewalks, and on-street bike lanes. How can we improve connectivity and access from one's points of origin, their residences, to key destinations, those schools, parks, other institutions, bus transfer stations, etc. All of these, we have very interesting anecdotal information, which will be summarized in the 3rd chapter, which we'll be completing in May. Next slide, please. So just recently we did, and some of you all I'm sure attended 2 of our public open houses that we had at the Brownsville Historical Commission, or excuse me, Brownsville Historical Museum. We did have all of the different, we produced probably, I don't know, 20 maps now analyzing existing conditions throughout the city. Those were displayed, as well as we had other staff members, colleagues of ours that were down to answer any questions people had. We also had, we were conducting maps and markers exercises so we could capture those places where people thought additional trails should be located, where there are key problem areas with respect to sidewalks and on-street bike lanes, excuse me. Next slide, please. We also I guess it wasn't last Saturday, it was the Saturday before, we attended the Brownsville Farmers Market. And that was a great deal of fun. We had a lot of people come out and ask a lot of questions. And so really great turnout, a lot of really good feedback from that event. And we plan to do that again probably in July. Next slide, please. So as I was mentioning, and what we did for expediency was just basically display for you some of the 2-page spreads that are coming out of Chapter 2. But in analyzing the existing conditions of your sidewalks, trails, and multi-use trails and on-street bike lanes, we did identify basically 10 typical conditions that warrant remediation. So this is everything from vehicular access management issues to ADA compliance, pedestrian crosswalk safety, certain trail enhancements, and a variety of different additional connections, which we'll go over. So we are basically just showcasing the good, the bad, and the ugly of your active transportation system. Next slide, please. So again, one thing that we are really going to be focusing on is sidewalk safety, ADA compliance with respect to crosswalks, handicapped accessible ramps, and curb cuts. There are a lot of places where you don't have the requisite curb cuts that are necessary. We have identified those comprehensively throughout the city, and so we will be prioritizing those and providing order of magnitude costs with respect to how much that they'll cost to implement. But that was a fairly huge issue. Next slide, please. We also, again, and forgive us for having to showcase all of the worst aspects of your pedestrian transportation system, but yeah, there's the intersections are a mess with respect to the amount of traffic control boxes, utilities infrastructure, that kind of thing. We will be making recommendations on how this might be able to be cleaned up a bit, but they're not in the most usable kind of condition right now in several places. But that's why you're developing this plan, right? So next slide, please. Again, just further issues. Access management is a huge issue. We recognize that a lot of the conditions that we're showing you have been grandfathered in. You know, they were pre the adoption of your Unified Development Code. So a lot of these issues just need to be repaired, and then the current provisions enforced. But access management, where buildings or businesses will have just a continuous rollover curb ramp into their parking areas, that makes for a very dangerous kind of condition. And so we are going to be providing some recommendations for that as well. Next slide, please. We also looked at, we've traveled up and down your multi-use trails and have recognized some issues with respect to site trail furnishings, the need for additional street lighting. In some cases, trails are beginning to erode out from the edges, which need to be shored up. So all of these, we will be providing recommendations for how best to treat your infrastructure so that it can so you can make sure that it'll be long-lived infrastructure. Next slide, please. So just an overview of next steps. As I mentioned, we will be completing Chapter 3, which is the needs assessment, in May we're going to be concluding the community survey, which we will summarize in Chapter 3 in the next couple of weeks. Then we will begin our Chapter 4 strategies and recommendations. It's within that chapter that we will be providing strategies on how to address some of these issues with regard to your sidewalk conditions, but also where additional trails may be considered. We will be again conducting some additional open houses toward the end of July, but our intention is to have this assignment complete by the beginning of September, where we will again make a presentation to you all as far as our findings and conclusions. And we're happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Mr. Tooley, I believe it was at the last meeting, I had asked if you would be kind enough to provide me with those updates, and I noticed that you're apparently giving weekly updates to Mr. Lund and some others. Would you consider, please, including me on those updates?
I'm happy to, sir. Will do.
And the other thing that I had requested was to do a count of the number of people utilizing the bike trails. And you said you did have a way of doing that. I don't know if you're at that point yet in your project, but I would like to see something like that if you can.
Yes, sir. And I know that we've discussed it with Mr. Garza and Mr. Lund about the use of traffic counters on some of the multi-use trails. So we can definitely check into that. Yeah, I remember us talking about that. So
okay. Okay, my email is ben@bennice.com. The staff should have it. And
I would also suggest if you send that information to Commissioner Neese, or when you send that information, also copy Commissioner Gowan on that. I'm sure she'd like to see that as well.
Thank you, Aaron. We discussed that at the farmers market.
Yes,
your
ma'am.
booth was very, very lively, and I was at the booth next to you. And I remember at the beginning, you guys said, maybe you can take me around and introduce me and talk it up and stuff. And I didn't have to do that because the
It's
interest
true.
for your table was very, very robust. And people have spoken to me afterwards, thanking
good.
you for your skill. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
my
you.
compliments on your presentation. Looks like y'all have been working very diligently.
It's a fun project, and we're really excited about some of the strategies and recommendations that will be coming out of this plan.
Anybody else?
If you could please provide a clarification for what sidewalks you're referring to, because some people who are watching may be thinking that they're on residential neighborhood sidewalks, and then that way we're all on the same page.
Yes, ma'am. Very excellent point. So as per the stipulations in the contract, we're mainly looking at sidewalks along collector streets as well as primary and secondary arterial thoroughfares. So we're not looking at local streets that are typically within neighborhoods, but we have identified all of the key entrances to key neighborhoods and subdivisions, and making sure that there is adequate connectivity from those entrances to the street, the network of sidewalks that are along collectors and arterial streets. So that's our main focus. But hopefully in subsequent phases, we or others can really analyze sidewalk connectivity within neighborhoods as well.
Thanks for that, Commissioner. That was a good clarification, actually. Thanks. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
I would
Thank
just
you
add
very
one
much.
last thing is that
Oh.
the planning department, when they review these plans, they should make sure that the developers follow, what's required by the city, because I think in the past, there was a lot of leeway, shall we say, given to them. So I'm sure that you would appreciate having a little better enforcement of the green areas and the sidewalks.
A good point. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, we can move on to our public comment period. Our first public comment form received was from Jasmine Del Rio. Jasmine, are you present? Okay, we'll move on to our second public comment form received from Scott and Sarah Tristan Jack. I'm not sure I pronounced that right, but
That's great.
Hi, I'm Scott Turston Jack, and this is my wife, Sarah. We're at 3714 Altameda in Brownsville.
Well, welcome. You'll have 3 minutes. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Mendez and City Commissioners. Thank you for hearing me and my wife today. We are here to speak to the Fair Practices Ordinance. We are longtime Brownsville residents raising our 6 boys and 2 daughters here in our wonderful city. We've had memorable experiences through the Brownsville Public Library and their summer reading program. We appreciate Brownsville's warmth and to our children, especially our extra large family. We have received so much from our great city of Brownsville.
Recently, however, we've been deeply grieved by particular events in our city. The creation of the LGBTQ task force, Pride Month, and the celebrations, including the library hosting Pride Crafts and the reading last summer by a drag queen. As a Christian family, we abide by God's definition of sexuality, family, and marriage. 1 Corinthians 7 says one man is to have but one wife, and that one woman is to have but one husband. The Bible also says from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. The Bible teaches that God is love and that Christians are to be known by their love. The Bible also teaches that genuine love doesn't do what it feels, it does what is right. Like you, we have rules for our children, rules they don't always like, rules that are in place not because we don't love them or don't want them to have fun or to squash their desires, but in fact because we do love them and we want to protect them. Love without restraints is not true love. We love our 2-year-old enough to teach her she cannot run into the road, period, because we love her. We teach our 6 boys and our girls that they cannot hit each other or steal. We teach all of our children to honor authority, whether an officer of the law, a teacher, a pastor, but first and foremost, the authority of God and his word, the Bible.
How can we expect to live happy and fulfilled lives outside of the boundaries of the God who created us and loves us? The Bible says, greater love has no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. The good news is that Jesus Christ did this 2,000 years ago when he died for my sin, for my family's sin, and the sin of the world. The Bible tells us all have sinned. My wife and I have accepted God's forgiveness for our sins, and we in turn submit to his authority over our lives. God has allowed you to have the place of authority that you currently occupy. I encourage you to prayerfully think long and hard on the decision before you. Please use your authority to vote no to the Fair Practices Ordinance. Vote no for the.
That's time, Mayor.
Are we done? Please vote no for the sake of your children and our children and for all of Brownsville's children.
Mayor, that's the 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next public comment form was received from Zandra Trevino. Are you present?
Hear me? Hello? Can you all hear me?
We can definitely hear you. Go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm going to start by reading an excerpt from the RGV News article dated February 2018. SpaceX founder's comments sparked frustration for Boca Chica Village residents. When asked how soon flights would be going to the moon or Mars, Musk talked about the necessary test flights that would need to take place first. Most likely, it's going to happen at our Brownsville station. Got a lot of land with nobody around. Blows up, it's cool. My name is Andrew Trevino. I'm a lifelong resident of Brownsville, Texas, and I don't know about you all, but I'm not a nobody. I'm disappointed to see continued enthusiasm from officials towards Elon Musk and SpaceX colonizing Boca Chica Village. A number of local residents have expressed their concerns over the harm SpaceX operations have brought and to bring employment and residents of the area, but local officials, including some who are present at this meeting, have made it clear they do not take the community seriously enough to listen. At the last City Commission meeting I attended, one official frequently made annoyed faces while residents expressed their concerns, extremely unprofessional, and another was more ready to thank the timekeeper for cutting residents off at the 3-minute mark instead of residents for expressing their concerns. They continued to refer to Boca Chica Village by its Musk colonized name, Starbase, promote events and imagery through social media, praising the narcissistic Elon Musk to incorporate his ecologically unsafe project, SpaceX, into our local culture. Based off of this behavior, it looks like tonight, during an executive session discussion, Brownsville officials will be accepting Musk's pocket change, continuing to disregard the effects his presence will have on the RGV in general, a rising cost of living that will make life more difficult for lower-income residents, increased harm to the environment through another proposed fracking operation on Chica Beach, and more pride. I mean, I need to ask, have you all even reached out to any of them about this? They're the original inhabitants here, and it seems like anytime somebody comes in to take land, they're always the ones who are being ignored. But anyways, all of this information has been made available to our officials through news articles, social media posts, and residents who have joined these meetings to speak. There is no reason to be complicit with this section of our and communities. I'm tired of local officials trying to establish the narrative that we, the people who have lived in this area, many of us our entire lives, don't know the needs of our community. But I'm say that we will continue to our community, even when you all are not. We'll continue to work alongside the people you all seem to be set on ignoring, all to make a quick buck. You all need to set your sights on the people before thinking about Mars or money.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Thank you.
Our next public comment form was received from Rebecca Hinojosa. Rebecca, are you present?
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Ms. Hinojosa, go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Hi, my name is Rebecca Hinojosa. I live in Brownsville, Texas. My pronouns are she, her. First, I want to just say that, I have strong support for the LGBTQIA community in Brownsville, and they deserve to be treated fairly and equally as any member of our community. And I'm here today to ask you all to ask the city of Brownsville to host a public town hall on SpaceX because there's a large amount of capital flowing into the community from Brownsville that has plans to cause drastic changes to our community. There's legitimate concerns of gentrification. There's already been harm to the environment. SpaceX is actively planning to drill, into our pristine beach in the middle of a major international wildlife corridor. There's serious safety concerns of explosions, damages from, rocket debris on, nearby communities. And just there have been drastic changes. Community members are already speaking out, and they deserve to hear from their peers in a public forum, in a town hall. So I'm asking the city to consider hosting one immediately because of how drastically and quickly these changes are happening as a result of this multi-billion-dollar industry coming into our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hinojosa. I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, our last public comment form was received from Delinda Loop. Delinda, are you present?
Yes, I'm present. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can. Ms. Luke, go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to voice my concerns. I'm speaking to you today regarding the Fair Practices Ordinance, previously called the Non-Discrimination Ordinance. This ordinance is being considered by the Commissioners for the City of Brownsville. After reading the draft on this ordinance, I feel deeply concerned for so many reasons. This is set up to protect certain members of society, but ignores the rights and practices of others. It is all-inclusive, giving no protections for religious organizations and their practices. It is a direct attack on our religion, on our freedom of religion, and by no means does it protect that freedom. There are so many variables to the situations forementioned in this ordinance that I believe this vague ordinance will become a huge burden to our legal system in Brownsville. Another concern is how can the Board of Commissioners that decides to approve such an ordinance also decide who sits on the committee that will hear the complaints? An ordinance like this one that will affect so many citizens, businesses, and places of worship should be voted on by the citizens of Brownsville, not just a handful of commissioners. Because of the concerns expressed regarding this ordinance, I believe it is deeply flawed and strongly urge you to vote against it. Thank you all for your time. God bless you.
Thank you, Ms. Luke. I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our work sessions. Our first work session is presentation, update, and discussion on the Musk Foundation donation to the City of Brownsville City Manager's Office.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. There's really not a whole lot to report here. There is the mayor, we did meet with SpaceX 2-3 weeks ago out at their site. They did put us in contact with the Musk Foundation. The mayor had a initial discussion, an initial kind of welcome, discussion with them. And we have heard as of today that they do plan on visiting. We don't have dates yet, but we will be setting up meetings for them and visits to, with stakeholders here in Brownsville. So we'll have more to report here in the next, I would say in the next week. But we did hear just this morning that that they will be visiting and they will get us some dates for that visit. That is all we have.
Mr. Gonzalez, would you consider including me in those meetings?
Sure, absolutely. I'll reach out as soon as we have a date, Commissioner.
Thank you.
I actually did make that recommendation, Commissioner, to Ramiro. So we do want to include you in that loop since that's your district.
Well, I have a few blocks too, in downtown.
Well, I think everyone should be included, including the at-large positions.
Agree with Commissioner Gowan.
So as soon as we have more clarity on their visit, I'll be reaching out to set up. We just want to get the logistics right, when they're going to be here, flights, that kind of stuff, and we'll reach back out to you with some slots of time.
So you might want to consider 2 or 3 groups if they're amenable to that, so that we can get a quorum.
Absolutely, Commissioner.
I agree. Thank you.
And so, Mr. Gonzalez, can you assure me that no money has already been promised to any entities or organizations in Brownsville?
No, ma'am. I mean, no money has been promised to any organization.
Okay, and so has the city, because I heard through the grapevine that the city was coming up with a proposal, right, as to how they would spend the money. Has any work been done in that area? And if so, who has been privy to those conversations?
At this point, we're waiting for the visit to get guidance from them as to how they would like to see the money spent. And that is what those visits are about, right? We
I think
do
she's
plan on-
asking if the city administration has had any meetings about those funds.
We have not. The only meeting that has occurred is that initial call with the mayor.
Right. It was more so just to actually really just hear them out and see what their thoughts were more than anything, rather than bring any sort of proposal. We wanted to hear them to see if they had anything specific in mind. So I think that's going to lead to the follow-up visit, which may be coming up next week. I'm not sure. Obviously, there's always ideas, but there's nothing concrete, and they haven't actually mentioned anything yet.
What they did.
Mr. Bernal, you haven't had any meetings with your staff regarding this?
Commissioner Denise, no, we have not.
Where are you guys at, if I might ask?
Fourth floor, sir. Fourth floor, City Hall.
At the HR room up there? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
Okay, our next item is Republic Services Day.
Lori, I'm sorry to interrupt. City Secretary and City Attorney, please note that I'm logging off the meeting because of a prior conflict of interest. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, duly noted.
Mayor, Commissioners, can you all hear me?
Yes.
So, good evening. My name is Omar Rodriguez. I'm the municipal sales manager. Bear with me. I'm dealing with allergies and my throat has been very, very raspy. But just to kind of give you all an update, we had provided the city last week on Friday kind of an update of what we're implementing and starting to do, reference to the brush and bulk matters and the scheduling. So some of the things that we have already implemented is we've increased driver hours. Our standard work week is usually 52 hours a week for our drivers. And we have moved up to 65 hours a week to try and get caught up with the brush and bulk. So it is extremely heavy, of course. And I want to also give the city of Brownsville a shout out and a big thank you for extending the landfill hours, because that's helping us as well. Since we up our hours, we needed a little bit more time there. And so by doing so, it helps us to keep operating a little bit longer. So just a thank you for that and helping us with the landfill hours. So that continues going to 65 hours a week. And then we are running the routes a little bit different, a little bit. And so I'll go over that in just a second, but we're basically focusing one section at a time with targeted specific areas. And so we've started doing that now. And as we complete one section, we'll move on to the next section, again with targeted specific areas within each section. We're dedicating the 11 brush drivers to each one of those sections rather than sending them out to their usual routes. And we're having to do this because as we started, when the pickup started with the brush, the increase, we were running our schedules, our routes, we would notice we'd pick up and they'd set right out, residents would set more brush out. Again, it's very heavy. So I think by doing the way we're changing the routing or the specific areas, it's going to be a much better and smoother process. And we feel it's going to help get us caught up a lot quicker. Our goal still, as of right now, is to be caught up by the end of the month of May. So we're running pretty hard right now. Again, section 1, as of the latest update right now, as of today, we are still working on section 1. We're slightly more than halfway completed for this particular section. So we're hoping to be completed with section 1, if at all possible, by the end of next week. With any luck at all, hopefully we don't get any rain or anything like that, maybe a little bit sooner, but plan on it being by the end of next week. Then we'll go into section 2. So section 2, normally this is the area where we have to push alleys. We normally do one tractor loader and operator to push the alleys and one truck picking up. We are now running 2. We will be running 2 loaders with 2 to 3 drivers per loader. So as the loader is pushing out the alleys, there'll be 2 to 3 trucks working to pick up those loads at the end of the alleyways and sending them off to the landfill. As all 3 trucks are gone, the loader operator continues to operate and push in the alley. So when those trucks get back, they just start loading up again. So again, just trying to find efficiency wherever we can and run the routes that way. If there's one truck already loading at the end of the alleyway, the other two trucks will continue to run in the targeted specific areas within that section until that one truck leaves to the landfill. Then the next one will come in to start getting loaded up and move on. As of right now, we feel that section 2 and 3 will start running a little bit quicker after 2 once we get into 3. Simply because sections 1 and 4 are simply the larger sections, and so there's a little bit more area to cover there. But once we get out of 2 and 3 and into section 4 once again, that'll technically be the second pass through. And we feel, although it's still going to be some brush, we don't feel that it's going to be as heavy because we've already made one pass through since this whole thing started up of the landscape and the brush getting really, really heavy. Again, just diligently working through every single day, trying to get caught up, and the goal is end of May to get back on par with the schedule. However, I will simply state this now that we still feel that brush is going to be heavy regardless. Pretty much through the end of June is what we're thinking it's going to be. So we'll still be running, but hopefully, again, the goal is to get back on par with schedule by the end of this month.
Mr. Rodriguez, so you have the city divided into 4 sections.
Yes, sir.
And you have 11 crews, or is it's 11 trucks? What's it you said?
Yeah, 11 trucks. Mm-hmm.
And those trucks, some of them work together, some pick it up and they dump them in the other trucks. Is that what it is, or are they just separate crews?
No, so there are 11 actual brush trucks, and what happens is, let's say we send those 11 trucks into section 1 to start running routes. So rather than to doing it that way, now, if you will, easiest way to kind of explain this, and this is not exact, if you will, but just bear with me because I think it's the easiest way to explain it. Let's say you have section 1, section 2, section 3, and section 4, so that now the city is broken up into 4 quadrants. Now, section 1, let's just, and this is going to simplify it, let's break that into 4 more quadrants, right? So we're sending all 11 trucks into one of those quadrants within section 1, get it all completed and picked up completely. Then we're going to be submitting the colored map saying, hey, we've already completed this back into the city, so they know that this area is completed. So if they get a call from that area, they'll know that, hey, this one was already completed, so maybe somebody set some more out. Then all 11 trucks will go into the next quadrant within that section, and then the third and the fourth, and then we'll have basically section 1 completed, then run into section 2 again. Just picture a 4 quadrant, if you will, to make it easy. It might not be 4, it might be 5, it might be 6, whatever it is. But again, then all 11 of my drivers go into one targeted section within section 2.
And so those trucks are the ones that have the big things that grab onto the brush and they put it in. Okay, so do you have a system set up? Like, do you have a supervisor, somebody that drives through there to check and see if they've done a good job or if they left stuff in certain areas? You have a patrol? Okay. And how many of those people do you have?
So we have one supervisor that oversees all of Brownsville, and he follows the trucks. And so that's another reason why it's going to make it a little bit easier for him to go to these targeted specific areas, run the route after they're done and complete, and then verify, yes, everything has been done, color code the map, hey, check it off, submit it into the city, hey, this has been done, right? Okay. So, and then we also have an ops manager that also will run in there and kind of check things out, as well as does my GM every once in a while. He'll run in there as well and check things as well. But directly, it's our supervisor for the city of Brownsville.
Okay, and the reason I bring that up is because one of our very common complaints that we get hit with all the time is how that people dump. They dump in different parts of the city, usually the same parts. So one of my questions would be, I know you're trying to catch up with the freeze and all that, but can't y'all do like some patrols where you see a toilet out here on the side of the road, or some tires or some junk that the guy can patrol around and say, hey, you know what? I just saw this over on Tandy Road. There's a whole pile of junk that people are dumping. Do y'all have anything like that set up to where you can do patrols and find out where they're dumping these dumping sites. You might even tell our health director who has cameras that they can set up to try to catch these people. So what's your position on that?
So we're not set up like that. So if it's a vacant lot, or if it's an illegally dumped dump site, if you will, somebody just decided to dump stuff and then other people went and did that. We're not actually in charge of picking that up. I believe that the city public works department would pick up any kind of illegal dumping sites. We do not pick that up.
Do you advise them at least and say, hey, we're out here and we saw this stuff over here. Y'all might want to go clean it up. Do you have any kind of communication with them like that?
Commissioners, I'd have to check with our supervisor. I'm sure that from time to time they go back and forth with each other, but I cannot confirm that. I would not know. I'd have to find out for you, but I can definitely verify that.
Okay, well, maybe it'll be something to consider the next time the contract's negotiated, to add a feature like that so that we can try to get rid of some of these blights that are, around town and the complaints that we always get hit with. So you might start processing that.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good, just like an overall cleanup of the city in areas that aren't designated currently.
Yeah, like patrols where, the guy that's driving around say, hey, we saw a bunch of stuff, Public Works, over at this place, and report it. Hopefully they'll follow through and clean it up.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, I can say that the most complaints I've gotten about brush pickup has happened over the last month or so, Mr. Rodriguez. So I really expect y'all to get on task here and get this done, because it's really making all of us look bad, and we're the ones that get the complaints, and the public doesn't understand what's happening or why it's happening or how it happened in the first place. And the freeze was probably about 3 months ago. So they don't really necessarily see that as a valid excuse.
Right.
And, you might, but I can just tell you the general public does not. So please, let's not drag this on any longer.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's our intention to get caught up by the end of this month, and we're going lights out on it, trying to get it done. I will say that the freeze was only one aspect, but then of course spring and the warmer weather came up. So it's just kind of two things going at one time. No excuses. We're going to get it picked up, and it is what it is. But it has been extremely heavy. I will say that what we're seeing right now, nothing compared to what we saw with the hurricane. It's that much worse with this situation with the freeze and everything, just kind of snowballing, if you will. But we'll get there. We appreciate the patience, and we're out there diligently working, trying to keep our guys safe at the same time. Up in their hours as much as we can, but we want to be safe as well at the same time. So we'll get there. If I hear or get any kind of an update on anything else, I'll by all means come back and give another update to the city and just kind of give you all a 411 on where we stand.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Y'all stay safe.
Yes, sir. You too. Thanks.
Item 3, Government and Community Affairs Update.
You have a clicker or? Mayor and Commissioners, good evening. This is just a real quick, I'll keep it real quick, update from my office. So next slide, Sana. One of the assignments has been the zoo master plan. This was a plan that was started just right before COVID hit, and this really was delayed significantly. We decided to kind of pause the planning process because of COVID. And so we did reinitiate the consultants and the zoo and the zoo board as of February 2021. We've had about 2-3 meetings with the zoo board and staff. This picture on your left is one of the things that we're working through. And you can see that this is a potential future lion exhibit. And so we're playing around with different ideas, getting a lot of comments from staff and the zoo board. And we're also trying to coordinate, the zoo. One of the things that we've discovered that we completed pre-COVID was an engineering report. And so on the conditions of the zoo infrastructure. And we all know the zoo is 50 years old. The infrastructure is 50 years old. So there are going to be some significant needs from the infrastructure side on the zoo. So we anticipate finishing this plan hopefully by August. I think at the latest September. And we will have some, some public meetings and some community engagement sessions. I would say sometime in June, around there. Next slide. Broadband plan. The broadband plan is currently.
Do you want us to wait till the end for our questions, or can we have them now?
However you choose, Commissioner Neese. I'm okay either way.
Did the zoo master plan? You can go back. Does it include trying to get Cummings as part of the zoo master plan?
We do have a couple of, we have played around with that idea. I didn't include that rendering in here, but there are some just sketches of what that could look like. So yes, I
think Mr. Birchville has a complete whole designs from what I've seen myself, and I thought that acquiring that property was one of the biggest components of trying to get the zoo more space and getting it up to par, like what you're saying, and that was one of the most important aspects of the whole zoo master plan. I could be wrong because we don't get that much information. For example, there's a rumor out there, and it's unfortunate that we have to find out through rumors, but there was some discussion that Cummings was going to be traded for the Brownsville Event Center. Is there anything to that?
No, sir. So to answer your first question, the zoo has needs all over. The future expansion, the logical place is Cummings. But there are a lot of things you can do within the existing site. For example,
But are you going to limit yourself to that? Don't you think that if you're going to do the zoo master plan, that you should look to the future for the expansion? I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, we are looking at that, and that will be included. However, what I'm saying is there's a lot of things you can do within the existing site, some opportunities that we've found.
Okay, but so you're going to stop there, or are you going to, I mean, I'm saying you should be more inclusive and include expansion. I think that's what the zoo wants to do. I could be wrong, but my previous discussions, which you were involved in some of them, included the discussions of acquiring Cummings, which has been like 2 or 3 years already in discussions. So the city administration needs to, I mean, we're cooperating with BISD on other things like the broadband that you're just getting ready to go into, but shouldn't the administration be already talking about this after so many years? Mr. Bernal?
We actually have, so Commissioner Neese, to Ramiro's point, there will be language and options here for the expansion. I think part of this is including other stakeholder groups in the process. The delay has caused us to not enable the conversations that have to happen with the BISD, but there will be mention of the expansion and the acquisition, but that is something that we need to work with BISD directly. There have been discussions, but the zoo plan is not complete. Those are still discussions that are pending and that are planned to occur with the BISD. The timeline that Ramiro has not included in here is that this is set to finalize later this summer around July. So there's still that portion that has not been included. To Ramiro's point, it's the expansion, but also completing all that needs to be done within the current site.
Okay, so you're just going to limit yourself, and apparently you have more information than Mr. Gonzalez, but your plan is, from what I'm hearing, to limit yourself to the existing site.
That's not correct. No, the expansion will be included here. I think Ramiro's talking more about the discussion with the stakeholders, that we want to make sure that includes the expansion, but that also the conversations are had with BISD.
Okay, so besides BISD, who are the stakeholders you're referring to?
Well, there's a zoo board, but then there's also having the commission go out. We had a joint meeting with the school district out there in December. We were attempting to have follow-up on the zoo plan, and that's still in
Who are
progress.
the stakeholders besides the zoo and the BISD?
Well, there's been discussion with VTX on broadband things. There's been discussion with A&M on veterinarian projects and things like that. So they're not the only group that is being considered as part of the master planning process.
Okay, so A&M and BTX, which is the city, right?
VTX is actually, no, they're a cooperative. They're a private broadband provider. They're actually doing a pilot project on broadband to use the zoo as a pilot feature for how broadband can support other areas of the city. So there's other moving parts to the master plan as well. And then there's PUB for the water sewer infrastructure and those components as well, because those are major costs that that are not above ground, but need to be recognized as well.
Have you talked to PUB about it?
Yeah, they've been involved. And then those are the conversations that COVID impacted, because there's things that could be done virtually. There's things that need to be done in person on site. And that's the part where even BISD, there needs to be a tour of the zoo for them to have a greater appreciation. We also want a tour Cummings to understand what their needs are, how that facility would have to be repurposed. Those are all preferably in-person meetings. And that's part of what still is to be done.
Good. Okay, thank you.
So before we move though, and my concern more is how much is the stop and go of this, and I realize the pandemic is an issue that it's costing, because as I understood it, let me turn on my video. As I understood it, that they had already started doing some of the interviews here in Brownsville. They had already started talking to some stakeholders. So what's happening with that? Are some of the stakeholders changing? Because I remember certain people that I was kind of curious, like, well, why are they being part of the group? But
the first step in the process was an interview of stakeholders, and that did occur when we started the plan last year. There is no additional cost as far as for the consultants. The work was captured. The interviews were captured. All that information that was done, I want to say March, right around when COVID started, all that was captured, and that's all being taken into consideration. One of the things was that engineering report that we received. So there's no additional cost here because of the delay. It's just the same contract.
But then you haven't been responsible for a retainer to keep them on retainer all these months, even though they haven't been producing anything?
No, they only send an invoice when they conduct work. So for whenever there's a deliverable, they send an invoice. There's no retainer. It's not a retaining. The contract is not on a retainer basis. It's a straight contract.
How is the expansion of the Midi Cultural District going to affect this? Like, how do the two play together?
I mean, the zoo is the center of the Midi Cultural District. I don't think the expansion, I mean, it's part of the district. The zoo is part of the district. So the master plan is only for the zoo. And we worked on a Midi master plan, I don't know, 5 years ago or so. So there's already an adopted Midi plan, district plan. Next slide. A broadband plan. We've been going through a couple of rounds of drafts to try to get it right and good to send to stakeholders. I should be receiving that draft in the next couple of days, at which point we will send it out to all stakeholders, which in this case is the 7 public entities in Brownsville that participated. We will also send it out to the commission for comment before we finalize that document. You also approved last meeting a consultant to help us write the RFP for fiber design and construction. We are hoping that that RFP will be published May 23rd. It could slip a little bit, but we are working on an aggressive timeline on the broadband plan.
I have a couple of questions, sir. One is, are y'all factoring in Wi-Fi into this broadband plan?
Yes, sir. In order to deploy wireless solutions in parks or trails or any place where you want wireless, you need fiber.
Yeah, okay, I got that from before, but you are including wireless so that people on the parks and the bike trails and that don't have a hookup at their house can access the internet. Is that part of your plan?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Okay, so it's citywide, right?
Well, not city, in parks. Yeah, so you could deploy a wireless solution at a park.
Okay. So we're not
At another
bridging the
park,
digital divide then, right? Really, we're not. In reality, we're not. So the people that don't get it going to their house still won't have it, right?
I mean, once you have the fiber, Commissioner Neese, you can deploy any wireless solution anywhere.
Okay, so are you doing that? Is that part of the plan is my question. Are you going to do this? Not can we in the future? I mean, we're doing it now. Can we do it all together?
I mean, we possibly could. I think in the plan it's written where wireless occurs in parks and trails. So if you live close to a park, yeah, you'll get the service.
Okay, and so, so are you including, have y'all reached out to Spectrum, to Verizon, to these other people that already have infrastructure in place? Have y'all reached out to them to see what they can add to this to maybe save costs?
We have reached out to AT&T. We had multiple meetings with AT&T. They showed no interest in being a part of the solution as far as for the inner city. What they did say, they said if it's a greenfield site, if it's a new subdivision, we might look at providing service. Spectrum.
Can you send me the contact information for AT&T for the person you spoke to?
Sure. And Spectrum is the same thing.
Okay, send me that contact information as well, please, and I'll follow up on it myself.
Okay. And yes, so those are the only two providers. We didn't reach out to Verizon or any other ones because they're not providers in Brownsville of internet.
Verizon provides, okay, well, if you have contact information for them, include that, please.
Okay.
And if I may, Ramiro and Commissioner, one thing about this plan is there's what's called the middle mile. So the middle mile is, it builds out the infrastructure and the fiber network. There's, I believe, 7 different rings that have been proposed by the experts or by the group that was brought in by the stakeholder group committee, Lit Communities, and they've built out the plan to include 7 different rings. So that's going to build all the fiber infrastructure throughout the city. That is called the middle mile. Now, from what is not at this point in time proposed, though we have asked the other group that has presented to us a couple times on the PUB smart metering, we've asked them to look at the last mile. And the last mile is where we're actually going to need another partner, whether that's AT&T, Time Warner, anybody else that provides that network, because then it's going to tap into our system and create that to the home. And that's the second part of this, which is called the last mile. And then that's the part, obviously, it's going to include the Wi-Fi and everything else. But obviously, we would partner with another entity to either pay us a fee because we built out the last mile, or they themselves would build out the last mile and then just lease our middle mile network, if that makes sense.
That's a little bit confusing because you've already got somebody who designed the middle mile, you call it.
Actually, no, we don't, because the part also that hasn't been explained that, and this is what most of the public thinks as well, there's actually no fiber infrastructure that runs throughout the city. It's older, less reliable types of connections.
Mayor, Lit Communities, you said, laid out the design for the middle mode,
Correct.
right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mhm.
So then I'm confused about why we had the RFP for someone else to do the design for the same thing, the fiber, right?
So Commissioner Neese, if I may, so the plan, Commissioner Neese, creates what's called the conceptual design. There still needs to be design development for construction. There's a difference
Okay.
between conceptual
All right,
design and construction
Okay,
documents.
the actual, yeah, okay, now, I imagine, I could be wrong, but I know that there was a big push at the beginning of COVID, and there was a lot of money given by the government to bridge the digital divide. Okay, so what I'm hearing and what I heard in those committee meetings, it doesn't get there. And my concern is using the federal monies inappropriately to bridge the digital divide when we're not actually going to accomplish that. So that's why I keep asking these questions. Now, maybe I'm premature and we have to wait for the last mile now that that's new facet has been brought into play. But that's what I'm worried about, using the money improperly and not accomplishing this goal of getting everybody on the internet so they don't suffer at home, not going to school and things like that.
So Commissioner Neese, let me take a stab this way. So the plan is a conceptual design document. The RFQ, the request for qualifications or the request for proposal, is to get design documents for construction. Then fiber will be laid out through a fiber backbone. Wireless can be provided through that fiber. To Ramiro's point, it can be provided citywide through a mesh network. It could be isolated to parks or trails. What Ramiro's not saying is that we're not at the point of delineating the rollout of wireless. The capability will be enabled through the fiber being in place. How that gets rolled out in terms of where the wireless will be provided, that's still to be determined. We still need to get the foundation in place. A lot can be done through that foundation, including installing AMI infrastructure or automated digital meters for the water sewer systems, wireless across the city. All that last mile that the mayor's talking about, all that can come through the provision of the middle mile network, which we need to have construction documents to then finance that, whether it's stimulus funding or otherwise. If we don't have that, the plan is still in a conceptual stage. I think that's hopefully a better way to look at the different steps that we're going through.
I'm understanding the steps. I just want to make sure we accomplish the actual goals.
Yes.
Absolutely, Commissioner.
We're way ahead. We're way ahead of the game because without the plan, you can't even do an RFP or RFQ. So if we had the money come in and if we didn't have this plan in place, there's nothing to design because we don't have a plan in place. We have the plan. That's the heavy lifting. Now it's just the construction, getting to construction through design development of this conceptual plan.
Any other questions? Next slide. The Cannery Public Market, this is once again, this is at 100% design development. The drawings were delivered Friday for review by the stakeholders. This project is fully funded. We do anticipate issuing a bid sometime late May, early June on this project. So that would put it on a timeline to award a construction contract sometime in August. Next slide. The Tactical Training Center, this is out in District 1. The state of Texas has procured a contractor. This is a construction manager at risk project. The project is being led by the state. The project is at 65% construction drawings. So, you know, with this, that they're going through the process of designing that location. We hope, and we will know here in the next couple of weeks about an additional allocation from the state. We're positive that there will be. As far as my role is, Lieutenant Byron Puckett has really kind of taken on the challenge of managing this project and managing the things on site. My role is really more on the legislative communication end. And so we're hopeful we'll know in the next 2-3 weeks as soon as the session closes. I believe session closes on the 22nd. So the budget has to be adopted by then. Next slide. Just recently, we were able to submit a grant to Congressman Vela for the community, I can't remember, community projects fund. And this is an emergency operations center. This is a project that's kind of been in and around the city for a long time. And Congressman Vela said, hey, there's this opportunity. Why don't you submit for kind of a phase one? So we did submit for a phase one request of $1 million to kind of go through the engineering, environmental, and design on that building. At this point, no location has been decided, but Congressman Vela did highly encourage us to submit this. So this is something I worked on over the last 2 weeks. Next slide. Crossroads to 2021 was canceled.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. How can you start doing plans, or if you don't even know like what terrain you're going to deal with, how you're going to position it, like if you're going to have to fill in land and all that, like, so you drew a pretty picture, like that just doesn't make sense if you don't have
So the federal government, Congressman Vela anticipates there being funding for the full project. And so he encouraged us to apply, like I said, for a phase one. Phase one is trying to find that site. Where is the logical site? Where is the best site in Brownsville? And then clearing environmental and trying to get to a shovel-ready status. Once you get to a shovel-ready status, then we would, Congressman Vela would encourage us to apply for the full construction dollars. And so also the process also gives you a full budget of what it is that the plans are, or the facility would cost. And so the more shovel-ready a project is, the more competitive it is on the federal government side.
So phase one includes finding the location. Is that what you just explained?
Yeah, finding the location, clearing the environmental process, starting the engineering and design, and getting to what you would call shovel-ready status.
I would imagine it would also include the needs, identifying the needs for what would be in that building.
Sure, yes, Commissioner, working with stakeholders, working with police, fire, OD, every type of EOC response stakeholder, and trying to get to the right facility.
Thank you.
But then you also consider access. So your choices are limited. You should already have that in mind. Because how can you have an emergency operations center like in a hard to reach area like my district,
Yeah, I mean, yes, Commissioner. I mean, there's logical places. An emergency operations center, for example, you wouldn't put it in a 100-year flood zone. But I mean, at this point, we don't have a site that we've identified and said this is where we want to put it, because we haven't had any funding to this point. And if we don't get the funding, I don't anticipate moving forward on trying to find a site.
Like, I just don't understand how you apply for something without already having a pretty good idea what size it needs to be, where you need the access. I know that they're going to help you find it, but you need to have a plan.
So the Congressman's office contacted us, let's say 2-3 weeks ago, and they gave us about a week to respond whether or not we wanted them to file this bill on our behalf. So basically, we weren't looking for funding. They came looking for us to see if we wanted to go forward, because the congressman back in 2016 or so, I believe, had wanted to fund an EOC for the city. And at the time, he was not able to get that funding for us. So he now came to us and said, hey, are y'all still interested in the EOC? Do you still have that need? And we basically said yes. And then they wanted to know what would go into a first phase funding. And that's all we provided them, just a name, EOC. Yes, we need it. And we need about we need about 10% of what would be the construction amount, plus or minus, working with OD and our fire and police chiefs. So we basically were asked for this opportunity, and we responded quickly And then everything else will have to come after if we do get the funding. But we were not actively seeking. It was just something that fell into our lap.
What happened between, what, did you say 2018 or 2016?
I believe it was 2016. That's what Maricela mentioned the last time the congressman sought to help with an ELC.
Was it did we drop the ball or something without providing some?
No, there was an earmark that was sought by the congressman's office. They were just unsuccessful in getting the funding.
They didn't need anything from us?
No, at this point, they didn't need anything from us other than say yes. Do you still have this need? And what is a good amount that we can go after for your phase 1 costs?
Okay, thanks.
I have a quick question. Have you guys thought about repurposing a current city building to do this?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
I would think like a building like the Levi's building might be a good fit and a better use than what currently is being there.
Yeah, we feel that actually, I don't know what the congressman would feel about that. We have to ensure that they're involved, but we have mentioned that for us, it'd be more sustainable to repurpose a building. It's better for maintenance costs. We're focusing on redevelopment. So that idea has been floated, but we do need to ensure that they're also in favor because sometimes the federal government does like to get the new shiny building. So we need to make sure that there's support from them as well.
Sure. Thanks, Neil.
Next slide. Crossroads 2021 was canceled. The planning for 2022 should start in the next month or so. Helen has gotten a lot of interest from the community, and we've just gotten a lot of positive feedback about this, and a lot of people looking forward to 2022. Next slide. The IBWC hydraulic modeling. We received clearance from IBWC Mexico to conduct surveying in the river in October of 2020. The consultant had to survey 40 or 50 cross sections of the river. So that means starting in the US, ending in Mexico, and doing that surveying. The consultant has completed surveying model development, and we anticipate the draft package for submittal to IBWC. We are awaiting that submittal, and we'll answer any response that we get from IBWC. We have kept the stakeholders involved, and we did have a meeting with them last week. We were able to find some of the things that the consultant was needing, and so we think that we'll come to a conclusion. This will come to a conclusion here. I would say no later than August, we'll have a conclusion on this. Next slide. UTRGV communications. We have a healthy and open line of communication between the city and UTRGV. Some of the plans that we were talking about with regards to athletic events and some of those things pre-COVID, really, I think right now is the time to pick them up again. But really, whenever they need something, the other day they provided their vaccine information as far as, how many people they vaccinated. And so there's a healthy line of communication there with UTRGV. Next slide. These are some of the legislative items there's a lot of bills in the House right now and in the Senate in Austin. These is just kind of a sampling of bills that we monitor. Just kind of wanted to throw some out there. HB 5 is something that looks promising. It doesn't really have, the state is kind of taking a status quo approach on broadband. They're going to do a broadband plan and a broadband office, but there really is no funding on broadband. The minimum wage bill could have some impacts on the budget. We don't anticipate passage at the state level. And this HB 1869 could have some issues as well for the city. Next slide. Always staying in communication with our legislative delegation, both state and federal. We are monitoring the ARP fund rule making. That is the state and local help that was passed in January. I just talked to Congressman Vela's office just 30 minutes ago, and we continue to monitor HR 268 and try to push to Congressman Vela. I call it the Fort Brown bill, but that is the final transfer of Fort Brown over from IBWC to the National Park Service. We're hoping that this can accelerate now that the Democrats are in power. And I'm optimistic for that bill. Next slide. This is a copy of the work plan that was adopted. As you can see, there's a lot of check marks. There's some COVID delayed, and there's some couple of updates here as far as timeline. And so that, I believe that's it. Next slide. So I'll entertain any questions at this point.
I have a question on that ARP that you mentioned. Do we know, either you or Mr. Bernal, how much we're anticipating on receiving with that second round, or I don't know if it's the second or third round of money that's going to be coming to our community?
In the ARP bill, it's the city will be getting 67.7 million. There are the Department of Treasury is creating the rules. They had 60 days to create the rules. 60 days is May, I believe it's May 11th or May 12th, the time of passage.
Have you and the administration had any meetings on the distribution of those funds?
I have not.
We have had, Commissioner Neese, we've had no formal meetings. The only meetings that we've had that we've even touched on the stimulus funding, which we'll touch on, or finance will touch on briefly later on, is during the 5-year planning process. There was a discussion briefly on that because we have a methodology for how we want to allocate, or the policy statements that were adopted would allocate surplus funding. There was just a high level discussion on that with the budget committee, but other than that, there have been no formal meetings.
No, but you have had meetings and you have had discussions, as you just said. So do you mind sharing some of that with us?
Sure. What we basically did is we talked about the funding, surplus funding policy statement, which is basically a strategy that was created in the 2020 5-year plan. And that basically speaks to what the city would consider allocating excess funding for, whether that's property taxes, sales taxes, enterprise funding, from PUB, et cetera. And what are the needs? What is the strategy we want to look at? And we ran the budget committee through a scenario for some of the sales taxes that are available through the mid-year of the current fiscal year and things like that. And then we just extended that methodology and ran, here's how this would apply potentially to the stimulus funding for discussion purposes only.
Are you including all of the stimulus funding mentioned by Mr. Gonzalez as that surplus funding, or a part of it?
No, it's not even being considered as surplus funding. It's basically it was just discussed in context with surplus funding that we do have. That's actual funding that we would use the policy statement for. But no, nothing's been allocated. There was just broad categories that were created that are created for our local funds. And then that was a discussion for some guidance. And there was also an article that was provided to the budget committee that will be shared with the commission on lessons learned from the 2008 recession and how cities best utilized surplus funding that was available back then.
Okay, well, it's okay to share that stuff with us even before you do the workshop or before the meeting. So when you gather information like that, it's okay to send us an email and let us know what's on the table, what's going on, and it would be much appreciated, at least from me.
That's coming before you today, Commissioner. It's scheduled to come. The 5-year forecast update is on the agenda today. You'll see in the PowerPoint, finance will touch on what I just mentioned. They'll show you the surplus funding policy. They'll show you the diagram where the ARP funding was layered in, and then we can send you the PowerPoints and the articles and all the supplemental material that was provided to the budget committee.
Yeah, I'm just saying you can try to do it before the meetings. When you have a meeting, a budget meeting, it's okay to send it to us. Let us know what you're doing so that we
No.
don't have to be taking so much time during this meeting on trying to find out answers. I mean, we can investigate it ahead of time.
Commissioner, if you recall, the budget committee was made up last year. It's appointed by the mayor. It is the mayor, Commissioner Galansky, Commissioner Cowan. So this isn't a part of the annual budget process. It says budget, but the committee is really designed to work with staff on the 5-year plan. So we're not talking about anything budget related. It's really 5-year plan. Now it's coming to the commission, and then we can certainly make all the information that was discussed available to you. If I was to send that to you before you seen it today, it would not make any sense to you in terms of what I'm sending. So we're going to send it to you after the presentation by finance today.
It might help me prepare for what you're going to present, but that's, if you don't want to do it, fine.
So it'll be provided with the presentation once it's provided. There's about 25 files that we would have to send you. We're going to send that out after this meeting.
So I've got a couple of questions for the IBWC hydraulic modeling. Can you issue construction permits now or no?
At this point, IBWC is waiting the final submittal, so no.
And that's like all up and down the border, basically District 1 and 4?
That is, well, the current focus is Amigo land, but anything south of the levee, it can't, you can't issue permits.
Okay, and then just out of curiosity, I saw that UTRGV, the medical school, is going to offer more medical services at the pharmacy and the HEB on Paredes. Is that something that the city was involved in, or they just did it themselves in working with HEB to pick a location?
We do understand that UTRGV Medical School wants to expand services in Brownsville, but the city did not have anything to do with the HEB situation. I think they opened another. So the HEB model is going to be replicated. I know Brownsville is one of them, and I think another one in Edinburgh. But they're working directly with HEB. No city. I mean, we're going to obviously issue a building permit, but that's about it. If they need a permit.
They have to build something, or they're just using their existing facilities and then they just add services?
I think they have to finish out a space within HEB, or maybe it's, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know if they do or they don't, but that's about the only role the city had in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Appreciate your time. Thank you for all the updates.
Our next item is consent agenda items 1 through 6.
This is a consent agenda. Do I have any motions?
Can I pull one out of order? The one about the Children's Museum.
You want to just take it out of the consent then, Commissioner?
Correct. And then
Okay,
I'll
very
move
good.
to approve all the rest of them.
Okay, what item are you talking about? Is that number 4? Okay, so we have a motion to accept the consent agenda with the exception of item 4. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, motion passes. Consent agenda item number 4. Can we go ahead and take that up, Lori?
Consent agenda item number 4, consideration and action authorizing city manager to sign revised lease for the Children's Museum for the demised premises as described in the lease, Parks and Recreation Department.
And so I'll be brief. The reason why I pulled it out is because, and I'm trying to look, one of the attachments said where the division of the expenses was kind of detailed. And to that end, as between the museum and the city. So I just wanted to make sure, because from what I hear going on over with the Costumes of America, is there going to be a consensus so that they don't duplicate expenses? Like, we don't want to have the Children's Museum hire an engineer, do their work, and then have the city hire an engineer and do the same work. kind of thing. Is that like part of the agreement?
Yes. Yes, and this actually, Commissioner, would further allow the Children's Museum to maximize their funding for other startup costs, so to speak, since they have to basically get the programming set up for the Ringgold. So that is the idea. They want to make sure they don't duplicate costs and that they also minimize maintenance costs for the first few years of the operations at the Ringgold.
Right now, I can't pull up the attachment, but I saw that, and I know that they're having issues with the Costumes of Americas. So I hope the same problems or don't occur with this expansion remodel.
Yeah, this would actually provide relief to the Children's Museum since they can now focus on fixturing, focused on their master plan, their programming costs, and not worry about some of the facility needs that might come up the first 5 years. And then we'll go 50-50 after that, which is what we have in place now. But that's the intent, to provide them relief and avoid any duplication of expenses for the Ringgold.
Is that what the revisions are?
Yes, Commissioner. Basically, we would be offering them like a home warranty where internal services would still support some maintenance needs the first 5 years, and then they would gradually take over 50% of the cost, because a lot of their initial costs right now are to get the Ringgold facility up and running.
And you're talking about costs like yard, lawn, the landscaping, stuff like that, or electrical?
It's limited, actually, it's limited to the exterior walls, HVAC, and roof, which is the more significant structural systems that they don't have to have an issue with the first 5 years. If anything does come up, we don't believe anything will come up because the facility is in good standing.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner, do you have any other questions on this item?
I'll move to approve that item as well.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Items for individual consideration. Item 1, consideration and action to acknowledge the Brownsville Community Improvement Corporation Strategic Plan 2021 to 2025, BCIC City Manager's Office.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Commission. I hope you all can hear me well. I do want to just go ahead and first and foremost, thank you all for the time and engagement you all provided to our team and to our board to be able to develop this document since March of 2020, right when we were in the midst of the pandemic. It was an ongoing effort with staff. We actually hired a consultant, BBA Advisors, to just strictly help us in developing a SWOT analysis report and also provide us some feedback with some of the projected strategic goals that we were thinking about incorporating into our plan. We recognize that for a SWOT analysis, we need to provide a neutral conversational platform, and we feel very comfortable in saying that we succeeded in that objective through the assistance of our consultant. And we've also gone above and beyond to be able to provide each and every one of you with an opportunity to view the full report, which was emailed a couple weeks ago, and also be able to schedule a one-on-one meeting with City Commission mayors to just discuss, again, the overview results of the plan itself, and also continue to collect some feedback, since most of you, if not all, provided some additional feedback to our consultant through that neutral conversational platform that we wanted to provide early on. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the second slide. I'm going to go ahead and just provide a quick overview, an abridged version, since most of y'all have already reached out and talked to us regarding our plan. But we do want to present our new mission and vision statement for the organization. We are focused again in enhancing the quality of life through innovative and equitable economic development initiatives, with the future of providing or creating Brownsville to represent the country as an innovative leader in fostering business development and quality of life. We wanted to also formalize our core principles and what makes our organization stand out and be able to fully work in collaboration with among the rest of the stakeholders throughout the community. And we've pretty much simplified it into this list, which is found on the next slide. We wanted to incorporate the key principle of integration, making sure that our programs, our organization, our staff can easily integrate with a lot of the ongoing efforts that are happening in our city, in our county, valley-wide, state, et cetera. We also wanted to continue to focus on some areas to make us financially sustainable. This not only is reflected on the programs and endeavors and campaigns that we focus on, but also on any future programming as well, or any operational changes that are needed. We want to make sure that we continue with that budget sustainability. Our third key principle revolves around collaboration. We've built a reputation the past 2.5 years to be as collaborative as we can in an unbiased fashion, to be able to include all stakeholders that play a role in economic development for the city, as well as continue to focus our investments in community building through quality of life projects. Human investment is also our fourth principle. It revolves around focusing on our human capital first of our community, making sure that all the investments that we make have a true impact, not just in economic development, but also in improving the quality of life for the folks that are down here. A lot of our recent endeavors focus on the retaining and attracting of prior existing human capital into our area. So we have a lot of very great success stories that we can go ahead and share with you all in the near future regarding some of these core principles. And our last one is to just simply improve and continue fostering much more needed transparency. So the stakeholders, which are most important ones, are our residents here in their community, understand exactly how our organization functions, where our investment dollars go to, and the type of returns that we're seeing on a year-to-year basis. That being said, I am going to go ahead and just go quickly with our next slide, which are going to be our 5 strategic goals. Our first one is perhaps our most important. It's our bread and butter, which is to transform Brownsville into a great place to live, work, visit through business development, tourism enhancements, targeted infrastructure, and quality of life improvements. So we consider ourselves to be an organization that focuses on ecosystem building, on building a community that's conducive for great living conditions, working conditions, and obviously for the tourists that are visiting our city. And we want to go ahead and do that in collaboration. So you'll see the collaborative term being used over and over again within our strategic goal number 1. I'll go ahead and move to our next one, our strategic goal number 2, which is to improve the business climate and ecosystem in Brownsville to retain, expand, recruit, and foster the creation of new ventures. So we want to play an active role in not only creating new programs, but also supplementing our existing organizations that play an active role in business development. We talk a lot about creating a pro-business climate, a pro-business environment. Well, we want to be able to utilize some of our resources as permitted by state stature as a Type B economic development organization to also supplement some of those efforts to ensure that businesses of all levels, including startups to larger enterprises, have access to resources that are equitable to ensure that we continue to not only provide the resiliency that we've been focusing on since 2020, but also improve on our innovation so that we can continue to diversify some of our industries that are now emerging in our area so that we can become a much more stronger economy at a local level and also be a larger player regionally in terms of the effects of our economy with our regional partners as well. So just for the record, I'm probably seeing a lag on my end, but I'm going to go ahead and jump into slide 6, which is our strategic goal number 3. And it's to promote Brownsville as a South Texas capital of innovation, entrepreneurship, and specialized skills training. Now, we understand that in our community, we've been focusing historically on traditional skills training methods. We have a great technical school, Texas Southmost College, and we also have another technical school within the county that services countywide with TSDC. And we have great school districts as well. So we recognize and we admire the efforts that a lot of these organizations are pursuing and investing in to continue to provide pathways for the jobs that are currently available through our growing industries as well as our emerging ones as well. BCIC's approach is not only to supplement and support indirectly some of those efforts, but also to create new skills training that are non-traditional. And by non-traditional, we want to be able to focus on the skill sets that are on demand, but for jobs of the future. We talk a lot about bridging the digital divide and what type of companies are going to come into play as a result of that investment in our infrastructure. Well, we want to make sure that everybody in our community, even after they have access to broadband, are able to not only have the literacy to be able to use it, but also enhance their skill sets in terms of programming, in terms of IT security, infrastructure development, and things of that nature to be able to provide these non-traditional pathways that a lot of other communities in medium-sized and larger markets are pursuing. Strategic goal number 4 is, and this is on the next slide, we're focusing a lot on our marketing efforts to ensure that we promote what we call the Brownsville story. And our goal reads, promote BCIC as a recognized leader in innovative economic development to create a sense of ambassadorship and pride. So one of our consultants, Dean Barber from BBA Advisors, actually talked about how our strategies should shift and in regards to how we communicate our successes. Instead of having staff talk about some of the successes of our programs, we want to be able to utilize the great relationships we built with local stakeholders, again, business owners, entrepreneurs, folks that are directly impacted by our quality of life projects, to be able to be on camera and be able to be a part of our content so that they are the ones that are actually promoting the living conditions, the working conditions, and the quality of life conditions that we have for tourists out in the open as well. We feel that through that strategy, we should be able to foster a spirit of local first, of being able to have a much deeper understanding of what's in our area, a much deeper appreciation of what we have, and hopefully open up more lines of communications with very outspoken individuals in our community to be able to understand exactly what some of those needs and wants and challenges are in our community. And our last strategic goal is promote teamwork, strategic execution, fiduciary responsibility, inclusive policies, transparency, and ethical business practices. And that's something that is a given in our strategic plan moving forward. It's to be able to continue to improve our operational efficiencies, to continue to prove fiduciary responsibility as the strategic goal states, to ensure that not only are we being fiscally responsible, but also transparent in every single aspect of our operations as well. We also want to be able to provide a much better onboarding process for new board members that are serving our organization, simply because our terms for Type B economic development organization boards are much shorter than those of the Type A. So we want to be able to just improve on our processes to be able to provide much more improved onboarding to some of these new board members, so they feel that they can hit the ground running within 3 months of serving our board. So again, in conclusion, we want to just give a quick thanks on our next slide to all the contributors. This was done in part, again, by our advisors and our team, for all those that were able to hash out some of the data and feedback that we've been able to collect, some of the strategic planning that took place. I do want to expand just a tad bit on our strategic goal number 1, which we also touched the subject on the sports park. And we are also going to touch the subject on our next agenda item here in the City Commission meeting. We want to make sure that we work collaboratively with the city to be able to address the amount of subsidies that are given to the parks maintenance and operation. On the first one, and my colleague Noel Bernal as well can also state the same, we will probably never be able to do an even return of investment with the maintenance and operations of the park, but we do have a very good opportunity to continue to develop the undeveloped area in the park to be able to address and provide more density to the park, so that we can at least reduce substantially the subsidies that are given to the park, and truly have an asset that's going to be not only drawing crowds from the outside market in to be able to shop, spend, and also consider living into our community, but also provide an ideal environment with both public amenities and private amenities that our citizens really do deserve. And so we want to be able to do that through an RFI process, to be able to first see what is market feasible in the area, to be able to pursue this type of project. But we want to do it in collaboration with some city staff, which our Director of Community Development, Corey Pena, informed me that both Rick Vasquez and our planning department at the City of Brownsville, as well as Damaris from the Parks and Recreation Department, are also part of this committee. So in our next agenda item, we want to be able to have the consideration of our City Commission to also appoint 2 members. They could be city commissioners as well that want to be part of this committee, so that we can go ahead and get the ball rolling and get this RFI out to be able to get this market feasibility study and be able to market this opportunity to a lot of developers that are considering investing again in their city. So again, this concludes my very abridged presentation on our strategic plan, but as always, I'd be more than happy to entertain any specific questions regarding our process and our plan moving forward.
Do we have any questions for Josh?
I don't have any questions, but I have a commendation on such a stellar performance by Mr. Mejia. He has set quite an example to be followed in the city, and you have my compliments, Josh.
Thank you, Commissioner. Great job, Josh. Any other comments or questions? Okay, this is an action item to acknowledge the strategic plan. Do I have any motions?
Motion to acknowledge.
We have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll stick around for the next action item.
Item 2, consideration and action to create a Brownsville Sports Park Committee to evaluate, plan, and implement new development opportunities for the park, BCIC City Manager's Office.
Thank you, City Secretary. Again, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners, I just want to go ahead and again reiterate what I had mentioned previously from our strategic goal number 1 from our newly adopted plan. We do have about 37 acres of undeveloped land over at the sports park. And what we would like to do as an organization, as part of a recommendation as well from the feedback we've received, is to be able to take the opportunity and allow the private sector to further develop this undeveloped land to be able to complement the activities that are happening at the sports park. We're also seeing a lot of private activity happening north of that intersection on Sports Park Boulevard and Old Alice from both IDEA and CDBC. So we understand that there's a lot of moving parts, and our recommendation is to be able to pursue a request for ideation or RFI so that we can find out what's feasible for our market to sustain and be able to package that together and be able to market that to developers to create something that is truly self-sustaining, provides economic impact to our community and to our region, and also provide a true asset of economic impact for our citizens here in the city of Brownsville. As I mentioned as well before, we created an RFI committee or a sports park committee. It's currently comprised of 2 city staff members, Damaris, as well as Rick Vasquez, myself, Corey Pena as well, and 3 other BCIC board members are going to be part of this committee. So our recommendation and consideration for the City Commission is to either appoint 1 or 2 city staff members, or if City Commission would like to join in on this committee, it would be greatly appreciated.
I would nominate the future city commissioner for District 3, but that's just my opinion.
I can take that. We can definitely give work before any appointments are made.
Okay, this is an action item. Do you have any motions?
I'll move to create the committee, but how are we going to populate it? Or is that going to be at another meeting?
I would suggest we do that in another meeting. I don't.
Okay. Well, I'll move that we create this committee.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? All right, motion passes. And for the management, can we get this on the agenda for the next meeting, if we can, for the appointment of the members, please?
How many members do you think we should consider? 1 for each commissioner, maybe, or?
I think there should probably be 7 to stay consistent with all our other committees.
Okay, so then
Yeah,
each of us.
At the moment, we do have five members already in the committee. We would appreciate to have 2 additional ones, as Trey, our mayor, mentioned, having 7 total. What we could do as another added suggestion is open up an application for the committee, and then consider those application results for the next city commission meeting.
That sounds reasonable.
Okay. All right, next item.
Item 3, consideration and action on approval of an updated employee handbook, organizational development and human resources. And Mayor, I've been told that this item is going to be tabled.
Yes, we're going to go ahead and table this item then.
Motion to table?
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, that will be tabled. Thank you.
Item 4, consideration and action on 21st amended declaration of local disaster for public health emergency. City Manager's Office.
Good evening, Mayor and City Commission. As we know, we are the 21st amended declaration measures, believe it or not. Basically, we have reopened many of our facilities. And one of the first bullet points you'll see is regarding the Parks and Recreation Department, all city parks and amenities are reopened for engaging in physical activity. They would still adhere with safety and sanitation measures. They'll be in place. Also, as you can see, City Commission meetings, we are here in person, but they'll continue to be hybrid or virtual. So in a manner consistent with the declaration to be able to phase into the ability to meet in person. And then we revised old language from previous declarations that are no longer applicable at this time. Next slide, please.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners. I really just wanted to show the slide and some of the advancements that we've made in the area to highlight. If you look at our trauma services area, TSA region, our rate says at 6.11%. And we attribute the slight increase, we were at 5.7% recently, was due to the Easter activity. But anything below 5% is really good ground. 6% is really something we see will be temporarily. Going on to the bullet points showing the vaccine rates for May 2nd, those are state numbers. And if you look at that first bullet of 35.68% of Texas residents 16 and over who are fully vaccinated, and you compare that number to what we've done on the 44% on the green bar, second to the left, we're 9% ahead of the state numbers and percentage as a county. So I want to make this point because it's really important that we tell our residents that they've been the reason that we're here, that we're 9 percentage points ahead. And we continue to ask them to continue being part of the vaccination. Going on to the second bullet point of 63.42% of Texas residents, 65 years of age and older who are fully vaccinated. When you compare that to our green bar on the far right at 68%, we're 5% ahead. And this has been a team effort. The fire chief, many city employees who have really been working with us to get the 65 and over. You know, these strategies and these outcomes speak for themselves. The fact that we are 5% ahead with when we were having difficulty even getting vaccines and been able to get ahead of the game. We're not giving up. We are going to continue. So far, we've done 16,784 doses of COVID-19, of course. And our city strategy is to continue working with business community to increase the number of people vaccinated in our city. The fire department also aggressively working through their MIH program, mobile integrated health. And in a recent conversation with Dr. McCormick, who joins us on Tuesdays and Fridays, you know, the strategy, this is the long game that we're playing. As we go up on the percentage of people who are vaccinated and we get closer to herd immunity, we start to develop these long-term strategies. And this is what typically is called in the public health world as a mop-up efforts to get us to the completion of the herd immunity. So I wanted to thank commissioners, mayors for all your support, and the outcomes are speaking for themselves. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez.
I can't compliment you enough. The fire, the emergency management, all the partners, TSC, Art, you guys are really doing a great job and it shows.
I would also state that the city is also helping our industry partners in coordination with the Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation to really get our large companies and our medium-sized companies vaccinated, their employees, those who want to get vaccinated. So I think the collaboration, even with BISD and everybody has been phenomenal and very much appreciated because, that was one of the questions. If we could, if the city or GB could help our industry partners anyway, what would it be? Number one priority was vaccinations. So we really pulled through with that.
Well, the vaccination numbers look really good, comparatively speaking, I think, to other parts. I'm really impressed with how well we've done in the area on vaccinations. And a big part of that is due to our messaging and our staff doing a really tremendous job getting out there and trying to find those that need to get vaccinated and instituting mobile units. And I know we're still working on vaccinating larger employers and things like that. So for Dr. Rodriguez and Chief Sheldon and all the rest of the staff, thank you.
And I just want to remind everyone, BTX Cares is the website. And if you have any questions or any follow-ups, go to our social media websites or btxcares.com. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there any other presentation on this item?
No, just action.
Okay, very good. Do we have any motions to adopt the 21st amended declaration?
To do so.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Lori, is Commissioner Tetro, did she leave the meeting entirely?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
She did.
Okay, thank you.
Item 5, consideration and action to acknowledge 5-year financial forecast update. Finance Department.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Commissioners. My name is Lupe, and I'm the Finance Director. Joining me today is Ana Benavides. We'll be both presenting on this item. The 5-year plan was initially adopted in May of 2020. This is the second year of the plan, first year of an update. This sets the foundation for the fiscal year 2022 budget. Last year was the first year that was initially, the plan was initially updated. It took, because there was a lot of heavy lifting, that we actually had 4 meetings in order to develop and approve the plan. This year we had 3 meetings. The meetings are listed on there. Basically, the meetings up there provide the context and items that we're going to be covering. One of the highlights that we want to point out is during the rating calls that we had recently, the rating agencies commended us in developing a commitment to our long-term planning process, and that got initiated with the adoption of the 5-year plan last year. Next slide, please. This slide helps show the relationship of the fiscal forecast with other planning documents and process that we use. As indicated on there, one of them is a fiscal forecast. Those arrows right there show the intricate relationship between each one of those different levels. Next slide, please. This strategy plan provides value for the fiscal forecast process because it provides benefits, it provides guidance and decision-making strategies, establishes a consensus on an approach, recommendations for reinvestments, infrastructure, human capital, services, and maintains required fund balances. Next slide, please. The service plans, the first year of the service plans phased in a annual phase-in to evaluate the service plans from each of the departments. Here's the schedule. One of the items that came up during this process was police department is currently going through a comprehensive computer upgrade, and there was an opportunity to swap out police to go through the service plan in fiscal year 2023 and get city secretary promoted up to fiscal year 22. Again, this purpose was because the police department is going through a system upgrade that would help during the evaluation of their service plans in 2023. Next slide, please. The 5-year process allows us to absorb and recognize things that are going on that we need to plan during the 5-year process, during the long-term process. We take into account current activities, which we relate to the budget, any budget adjustments. We look at, we monitor the sales tax because of the sensitivity of being in one of our major sales taxes and because of COVID. We started the conversations with American Rescue Plan as it relates to commission strategies and visions and other existing plans. We're going to spend more time on this with the commission as a whole. Next slide, please. Next slide. The strategic automation plan, we took some time to go over the strategic plan with the commissions and giving them an update on the progress of it. One of the main items on here is that EA, Enterprise Application, is going to be provided third-party support towards the latter part of this fiscal year. So this is so that the purpose that we could initiate and continue the projects that get completed as they are planned. Next slide, please. Revenue policies. We will be having a surplus related to sales taxes and possibly PUB revenues tied to PUB not monies that we'll probably get towards the end of the fiscal year. One of the policy statements that demonstrates some of the opportunities to make improvements of deferred maintenance in areas that are still fall within commissioner visions and balancing organization. The chart that you have here, this is just planning processes. This is nothing that was set in stone per se. This was just an idea. Noting that part of the policy statements, the first actions that we need to do is make sure that we comply with our fund balance policy. This year, actually in fiscal year 22, even though the audit's not done, we will be meeting that 90-day requirement. Because we anticipate to have sales tax surpluses and possible PUB, we developed a chart that would help us guide us with some scenarios. Again, just planning stages, nothing there. We identified projects, we provided estimates, we identified the commission pillar that would address and the plans that would use to support that. Again, this is something that was used as using our strategies in a 5-year forecast financial policies. Next slide, please. We take the same template, same approach, and this is with the American Rescue Plan fiscal year 21. Again, it was only the planning scenarios, there's nothing set in stone, but we took what this does, it identifies a strategy that we would undertake, whether we get, one-time windfalls or any type of stimulus monies, would go through the exercise, identify projects, what pillars that it would address, and then what plans that would benefit. Again, during the budget meetings, budget process, this is will be further go into details. Next slide, please. I'll turn it over to Ms. Ana.
Good evening, Mayor Commissioners. So sales tax revenue has been the focus of staff, but the property tax base and the property tax revenue was also discussed during the budget committee meetings, as these two are the major revenue sources for the general fund. So on this slide, we can see some of the topics that were covered during the second budget committee meeting, some related to the property tax base. These are some topics that city staff is currently working on and researching, while also proactively monitoring the effects of the pandemic on the property tax base and the revenue, as we might not see the effects immediately, but it's still a topic that is important to consider for the future. Next slide. So one of the topics that was discussed on the last budget committee meeting was the non-public safety compensation. This is an important topic as we just completed the second and final phase of the compensation study that was first implemented in 2013. So city staff provided an update to the budget committee on some of how the compensation has worked historically, also some of the challenges that we currently face, and also what we're looking forward on this topic on the compensation. So last year, we first introduced the one-time pay policy. This is one of the items that is currently being looked on. Also, the long-term sustainability of the healthcare fund and understanding the total compensation approach. And this is the total compensation, meaning the pay and the benefits that the city provides to city employees. So we're currently trying to understand this total compensation package that is provided so that staff can educate city employees on these benefits and this pay that they're currently receiving. So the city is strong in benefits. And there are some challenges in the compensation and in other areas, but the city is committed to pay as competitively as possible. Next slide. So this is related to the non-public safety compensation, other items that were discussed. As I mentioned before, the city provides strong benefits that are listed here. There are also professional growth opportunities. And this was all discussed during the last meeting of the budget committee. Another topic that was discussed was the 87 legislation. Right now, we're in the midst of the legislation that is going to be concluding on this month, the last days of this month. So staff is currently monitoring any legislation that might affect the city, especially those that limit the revenues that the city can receive, like the property tax cap, franchise fees. Staff has also worked on scenarios for the $15 minimum wage that while right now it's still being worked on, we want to look at the impacts in case that future legislation, either at the state or at the federal level, we want to look at how that would impact the city. And now on a more positive note, this graph shows the fund balances for the general fund throughout the years. On fiscal year 2020, these are unaudited numbers. The audited numbers are going to be presented in the coming meeting. But we just want to show that the fund balance continues to increase. We keep adding to it, to the reserves. And yes, in the next budget committee, in the next commission meeting, sorry, the auditing information will be presented. And this is just to show that city staff is currently working on budget scenarios. This is on the 5-year financial forecast. The numbers that we are presenting are not final. These are still unaudited. But these budget scenarios will be developed and will be ready by the end of May. This will serve as the foundation for the fiscal year 2022 budget process that will start soon.
That concludes the presentation. Have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions or concerns?
Yes, could you go back to number 89, page number 89? Okay, so in 2013, we did a compensation plan with an 8-year implementation completed this year. So between 2013 and now, how many raises has the city employees gotten? In other words, they get 3% cost of living raise sometimes. So how many times since 2013 have they gotten a cost of living raise or any raise?
I need to go back to the history. I don't know. I don't know if HR is on the line. I don't want to give you an accurate, but I think it would have been once or twice of COLAs that were given during that time. But I need to verify.
Yeah, I was thinking, I didn't remember too many. So how did they get left out, over this period of 8 years with only that? And now you say it's completed and they haven't even seen a raise since we don't know when, obviously, because you don't. And number two, you go ahead.
Well, the point was that COLAs increases. The compensation plan, I don't classify it as a COLA. It's a pay matrix. There was two phases approach to that. The first is to bring people up, employees up to a certain entry level.
And were they? Were they?
Yes.
So, but without any raises? Without any COLA increases? Without any, how were they brought up?
There were two phases of it. A certain group of employees, I don't know exact the numbers, that raised the minimum wage up to a certain level. Because we didn't have the funding during that period of time, we couldn't implement the whole plan as a whole. We had to break it up into two sections.
So was their pay increased?
Not everybody, only the persons that were under the threshold that the compensation plan said.
How many people was that?
Oh, I don't have that information.
Out of 1,200, more or less, how many? Okay, that's all right.
Yeah.
Now, we have been told, and there's much criticism about the employees, the normal, non-public, non-civil service, being left behind. And then we see that administrative high-level, salaries are all right commensurate with everybody right across the state. And then we have our poor employees, being left behind, shall we say. So my question is, you say you implemented this, but I don't see how, because they haven't seen any increases in over 8 years, except maybe twice. That would be 3%, 2 times at the most. Executive pay has been way up there. And now, if I understand correctly, what are we talking about? Stability, 50% employees can retire in 5 years and 70. Is that a change in anything?
No, that meant to say that the city has a very stable workforce, which when employees come to work for the city, either for whatever reason, there is not much turnover in the city. That
Okay, so the 50% that can retire in 5 years, 75 within 10 years, that's the same as it has been. I mean, in other words, the numbers. So on the next one, professional development, what does that less than 1% mean?
Most organizations allocate a budget for professional developments organizational wide. The city back last year, or 2 budget years ago, I don't recall, or actually this year, the travel and training, or the training budget for professional development, it only represents 1% of the city budget.
Okay, and what percent of the city budget do the cost for consultants represent, if you know?
I don't have that information, sir.
Okay, do you know what the amount is for that less than 1%? What the dollar amount is?
It's about 150,000 or so.
Okay, so we're spending 900,000 on consultants, and you want to take away the ability to take out their holiday leave and their sick leave to reduce costs, because somehow it's going to benefit them when you use it to increase their professional training. I mean, that's the theory I've been hearing. Does that make sense to you, looking at these numbers? 150,000 is all you're spending on professional development? Sorry, Lupe, to put you on the spot, but they said they put you out there, they sent you, so you got to take the heat. So tell us about that.
I didn't follow your analysis, your comparative.
All right, so we spent 150,000 on professional development. Okay, We spend 900,000 on consultants. And we want to cut the retirees from being able to take their full vacation pay and their full medical leave pay because we want to use that money to develop them professionally. Okay, so does it make more sense to cut back on the consultants and teach our own people how to do their jobs? Or just keep spending money on the consultants?
I'll take a little bit. I'll answer that question, Commissioner Neese, from this perspective, that you're talking about two different streams of revenue. Consultant fees are typically project-based. If a consultant's brought on board, they're not brought on board on a retainer basis. They're brought on board based on projects. Those projects come before the commission, and the consultant fee typically reflects a percentage of the project. No more than 10% of projects goes towards soft costs, which is your professional development, your studies, things of that sort. That is one-time money. Professional development here, we're talking about a recurring stream of money that is allocated toward professional development, not one time. So applying savings from consultants, that would be one-time money. If there's no project, there's no consulting fees. If there's no consulting fees, there's no money to allocate. This is a recurring.
Where are you getting the money for the consultants? Because it's not a one-time thing, because it's a continuous thing, and you're getting that money from somewhere that you could be using on professional development instead. That's
Sure,
my
the
point.
majority-
If I'm wrong,
Sure.
I mean, just fine, I'll accept it, but.
I'd be happy to. No, let me explain. I'd be happy to talk about that because some of the revenue streams that have led to the projects, the majority of that has come from our debt restructuring. So in 2019, the city restructured its debt portfolio. That created capacity that we did not have before to allocate toward capital projects, studies, and et cetera. Had that not been done, that created about $30 million of revenue within the tax rate without a need to increase taxes. So there's a
You did
perception
that
perhaps.
before the restructuring, there was a lot of money spent on consultants. And I understand what you're saying, but my question is very simple. Should we invest in professional development or continue with consultants? It's a simple question, no matter where the money comes from.
Mr. Bernal, hold on. Commissioner Neese, I just ask you to be respectful enough to whenever you're asking them a question, at least be respectful enough to let them answer the question before you cut them off again, please.
Yes, as long as he answers the question I'm answering and not going off into this bureaucratic speak.
So the question is both. The answer is both, because the correlation between a lack of professional development and the need for consultants is that when we don't have the capabilities in-house, we have to go out for that specialized assistance. It doesn't happen overnight. When you have a less than 1%, which typically the standard is somewhere between 5 to 7%, sometimes even 8 to 10% of payroll, that reflects a need for a lot of development within the organization, which takes years to create that capacity within. That is the purpose of seeking recurring funding for a systematic, comprehensive professional development program. That'll reduce the need for consultants. The difference between consultants is it to supplement staff or is it project-based? If it's project-based, there may still be a need for consultants on certain highly specialized projects. What we're talking about when I mention consultants is consultants that do the work of staff or that become an extension of staff. That's where I would agree with you that we want to have limited reliance on those types of consultants. But when it comes to projects, there will always be some type of need for consultants that are specialized in project-specific areas.
Do we have any other questions or concerns? But I do agree. I think we do need to look at continuing the professional development. If it requires additional monies, we can always consider that. But ultimately, the goal is to develop our own internal staff.
Yes, Mayor. And whether it's me telling you or somebody else telling you, but typically from an organizational development standpoint, organizations benchmark using the percentage of payroll. Typically, it's somewhere between 5 to 7% where you want to aim to be at for recurring investment, not as a one-time, recurring. That's the thing that I would say there.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
This is an item to acknowledge.
Okay, very good. Do we have any motions?
I'll move to acknowledge.
We have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I'm abstaining on this one.
Abstain. Okay. Lori, please note Commissioner's abstention and the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6, consideration and action authorizing the city manager to negotiate, finalize, and execute a migrant influx COVID-19 testing agreement between the Department of Homeland Security, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and the City of Brownsville. Fire Department, Office of Emergency Management.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners. On January 27th, 2021, the city was made aware of an influx of immigrants that would soon be released in large scales to our La Plaza Brownsville terminal. This led emergency management deploying its migrant influx operations. As it has been the primary department who has overseen and run previous support efforts, the old plans were quickly adapted and emergency management began to assist. Unfortunately, we had a new component to deal with, which was COVID-19. The health and safety of our community had to be prioritized. The decision was made to reach out to our current testing partner, the Port Occupational Clinic, who began to administer diagnostic testing for COVID-19 to all migrants released at our La Plaza terminal for the prevention of and response to the current pandemic outbreak. Testing was completed for the duration of 4 days as we tried to find a better and most cost-effective way to continue testing through this fluid event. If this influx was an indication of what we experienced in 2019, we knew the operation would be a long one and all respective resources would need to be allocated accordingly. The Office of Emergency Management reached out to the Texas Department of Emergency Management for assistance with testing kits. They were able to provide us with Abbott testing kits, as we now know as Binex now. After becoming certified to test using these testing kits provided by TDEM, both the Brownsville Fire Department, EMS, and the Office of Emergency Management took on testing responsibilities and began administering COVID-19 tests on February 9, 2021. This proved to be a very daunting task for us, as our departments were already stretched thin with other responsibilities brought upon during this ongoing pandemic. Numbers on migrants released began to increase. We continued to test through February 23rd, 2021, as we actively worked to improve and execute the testing process to ensure the safety of our community. After speaking to our emergency management counterparts, Cameron County was able to assist the City of Brownsville with testing from Dignity Health, an entity utilized at our local state-run testing sites. Dignity began testing at our La Plaza migrant drop-off site on February 24th, 2021, and continued testing through March 25th, 2021. The Department of Homeland Security deployed a contracted team and established a field testing site. This deployable testing site has been capable of providing an environmentally controlled space to accommodate testing for as many hours necessary each day. DHS contracted testing began on March 26, 2021, and continues to support our efforts up to the present time. Due to the nature of this fluid event, DHS has executed an existing contract that will be adopted by the City of Brownsville, in which the city will exercise all responsibilities related to this contract, including contract management, oversight, and operational control. The contract will be funded by FEMA, in which a sum of money will either be provided to the city upfront or through a reimbursement process. This will depend on how quickly this contract is approved and executed by all parties. DHS is hoping to transfer this contract by May the 7th, if possible. We're looking at, we continue to work with our procurement department to ensure that all standards are being met, and we ask for your approval. Any comments or questions?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Odie, for presenting that.
Thank you, sir.
Executive session. I'll read the items. Item 1, closed session. Pursuant to sections 551.071 subsection 2, and 551.087, subsection 1, Texas Government Code to consult with legal counsel regarding the city's legal rights, options, and obligations, and regarding commercial or financial information that the city of Brownsville has received from a business prospect that the governmental body seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in or near the city with which the city is conducting economic development negotiations, and to deliberate financial or other incentives to the same regarding the development in the area to constitute the Madeira Espiritu Santo TERS Planning and Redevelopment Department. Item 2, discussion and deliberation of personnel matters pursuant to section 551.074, subsection 1 of the Texas Government Code related to the evaluation, employment, and duties of the city auditor, city attorney's office.
Okay, do we have any motions to go into executive session?
Motion to go to executive session.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor? All right. All right. We'll recess executive session. Thank you.
It is now 7:42 p.m. and the city commission will go into executive session. 8:27 PM, and we have returned to open session. I'll read the next item. Possible action on any items as discussed in executive session. Item 1, consideration and action regarding incentives to business prospects or development of the area constituting the Madeira Espiritu Santos TERS Planning and Redevelopment Department.
Okay, on this item, there's going to be no action on this item. The next item, please.
Okay, item 2, consideration, discussion, and appropriate action, if any, regarding the evaluation, employment, and duties of the city auditor, city attorney's office.
All right, do we have any motions on this item?
I'll make a motion to instruct the city attorney to remand to writing the items discussed in executive session.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Before we go there, and it's going to be to reduce to writing the findings and recommendations of the commission regarding the evaluation of the city auditor and instructions to remand the process of procurement on special audits to the city and oversight committee.
Okay, I thought it was going to be 2 motions, but that's fine.
Okay,
I'll amend my motion to echo what Mr. DeCoste just said.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. Next item is adjournment. Do we have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you all.
There being no further discussion or business to come before the city commission upon duly made motion, the meeting has adjourned at 8:29 PM.